Hello and welcome back to Wheelsboy Chat. I am delighted to say that we are returning and hopefully much more consistently this time because we are actively building a new Wheelsboy studio. You're getting a bit of a preview today. This will be the permanent table. That will not be the permanent background, but I won't ruin the surprise that we have in store for you guys. More importantly, let me introduce to you my co-host for today's video, sometimes co-host, always friend, Mr. Mark Andrews.
Good to be back. It's been a long time, hasn't it?
It has. We have not done a Wheelsboy Chat video since the Shanghai lockdowns around this time last year.
Wow, how we missed that time.
It's been, yeah, wow. I don't think back fondly on that time. I'm glad we're here under much more healthy circumstances.
Yeah, we've eaten.
We've eaten, yes. Yep. We've gotten consistent food for the last few months. But the topic of today's video is none other than the BYD high-end brand, Yangwang. First, Mark, let me tell the viewers who don't know, Yangwang, the Chinese word, is basically, it's like a way of saying to Yangwang is to look up to or look up at something. In a metaphorical sense, to look up at the emperor or something, to Yangwang, like this. So it's the idea of this is the peak of what BYD can do, and all the other brands look up for inspiration to that brand. But now let's talk a bit about specifically what models are we going to be coming from Yangwang, and there are two, the U8 and the U9, but first...
Ethan, to everybody, it's the dancing car, let's face it.
Yes, the only thing anybody wants to talk about at this point is the recent BYD press conference, which Mark and I were both at. Yeah. We did see the dancing car with our own very eyes, and we can tell you it does truly dance, and it does truly jump. I think that people gave too much attention to the dancing because the really impressive part was the very end, where it physically, lowrider style, in like the US style lowrider, got off the ground. I mean, all four of the corners of the air suspension compressed or went up at the same time, and you could see the tires get off of the ground, and that was wild. I can tell you that everybody went insane when they saw that in person. The point of that demonstration and of that press conference was to talk about DCIS, or Yunyan is the Chinese name, the new BYD suspension and body control technology. So what are some of the things we learned from the press conference, Mark?
Cars can jump.
Yes, number one, cars can jump. But what else? What are we expecting to see from it?
It's very difficult to say actually, but I think what they were really trying to do was show how they're introducing new suspension technology, and I think particularly when it comes to Yangwang, it's obviously the high-performance brand, and the whole idea of that Yangwang U9 jumping shows the capability of their system. But where that really comes into play, I think, is with the Yangwang U8 as an off-roader, and shows just how much flexibility that suspension system has, which should mean it has incredible off-road capability. The problem is, do you really want to put your really expensive car through such a terrain?
The dilemma of every G-Wagon owner for the last 20 years or so. Do I take my $170,000 G63 AMG off-road? The answer is almost always no. We'll see if the Yangwang U8 buyers are any different. But I think one of the other things we learned from the press conference, because the suspension technology was super interesting, was there was basically three different kind of levels of the DCIS. DISUS. Yeah. Not the best name, not the worst name. We won't dwell on that. But there are three different levels. There's DCIS A, C, and P. Actually, there's four.
Yes, there's X as well.
X was revealed with the U9 driving on a stage and dancing and jumping. Yeah. DCIS A seems to, it seems like DCIS, what is it? DCIS C?
DCIS C is the base model.
Right.
So that's basically just damping control. And we're not exactly sure what the letters stand for. We think A, because A is the air suspension, so A must stand for air. Then we've got DCIS P, which is hydraulic.
Performance, hydraulic, big difference, big important thing. DCIS A is the air suspension versus DCIS P, which is a hydraulic suspension that will be available on the Yangwang U8.
Yes.
And then X is what we don't really
Yeah,
know.
well, it might stand for extreme. Possibly the X might be extreme. That's what I'm guessing. Anyway.
Extremely extreme.
Yeah, and I think we perhaps ought to explain the DCIS name, what we think it is anyway, because the D is probably BYD, because they also have D pilot and various things with BYD. It's D, and sus probably is from suspension.
Yes.
Presumably, anyway.
Like I said, not the burst name, not the best name. But it's unfortunate that the Chinese name, which is a little bit difficult to translate because it's an ancient character that represents Nian represents car. It's the ancient word that was used to describe the emperor's carriage that he was brought around in and things like that. And so it's difficult to understand why they didn't try and translate it to make it sound more impressive.
Yeah, the Chinese sounds definitely more impressive, I think, from what I understand, with its meaning, etc., than DCIS, but impossible to translate.
Yes, and so DCIS C is the basic one. It's damping, and it's going to be available soon via OTA upgrade.
Yes, that's very important, I think, the fact that it's OTA.
Very important. So for buyers of existing BYD Han and Tang vehicles, they will be able to receive the OTA upgrade. This is Chinese buyers. I have no idea if this applies to the Europe or other markets that have these two cars. They will be able to receive an OTA upgrade that they will now give them DCIS A, right? No, DCIS C. It's not a hardware-related upgrade. They've already got the hardware. Then DCIS A is going to debut, it would seem, on the upcoming Denza N7, which is kind of a fastback SUV. We'll talk about that in a separate video coming up. And that is obviously air suspension. And that is much more hardware-focused, much more hardware-intensive.
Well, it's hardware and software. So basically, I think it's taking what you've got on the C and adding a hardware dimension to it.
And so that way, that'll be the kind of separating factor for the Denza brand. I don't think they're ever going to make DCIS A available on Tang models because it would eat into maybe Denza models kind of selling points. It would make sense to me.
Yeah, because obviously air suspension is more expensive anyway, so you're not going to really have that in the mainstream brand. It's just probably out of that price range, certainly for the moment anyway.
It is. I will not give details about which brand told me this or the representative from which brand told me this, but I will say there was a particular brand that said to me, the reason we have standard air suspension standard on all of our cars is because the air suspension on all four corners costs as much as a single tire to get. And I was flabbergasted at the thought of this. Right. Yes, he insisted the hardware at least. However, I'm sure that the tuning and everything else is the true expense. Then you have, of course, P. P is the one that is available on the Yangwang U8, and that nicely transitions us into discussing the U8, which is a full-size or large SUV. Dimensions about the same as a Defender 130. So the four-door Defender, 5.3 meters long, 3-meter wheelbase, more or less.
It's big.
It's big.
Yes, we saw it at the press the press conference the other day. So
yes, we saw it. We saw it in person for the first time, and it is large. It is, what is the word? Impressive looking in person, intimidatingly large. What's special about the Yangwang U8? Let's start with the powertrain. What can we expect?
Wow. Well, the fact that it's got the 4 individual motors, that's obviously a big factor, because normally with these kind of vehicles you would expect maybe just a motor on the front axle and a motor on the rear axle. Well, each individual wheel's got its own motor. And that's obviously going to really help with its off-road capability.
Absolutely. So each of those actually has what's called, they have a, they call it an intelligent, I'm translating, intelligent connected four-wheel drive system or all-wheel drive, true all-wheel drive, meaning each individual motor can be driven separately using the individual electric motor there, which gives them essentially infinitely adjustable all-wheel drive at every corner. So regardless of what the contact patch the vehicle has on the ground, it's going to be able to, now,
because obviously some of the wheels might not even be in contact with the ground. Although actually with that suspension system, probably they will be actually, because that suspension system is going to be incredibly capable. So you're going it's going to be possible for one wheel to be right up here and another wheel to be right down there, from what I could understand from the
if I remember correctly, the suspension has up to 15 or 20 centimeters.
I think it's 20 centimeters, yeah.
That's of adjustability up and down. 60 centimeters of articulation, which seems like quite a bit. And certainly in the videos that you can find online of it working, it seems very impressive.
Yes.
So you've got the quad motor powertrain, with the individual motor for each wheel. You've also got, let's talk a little bit about how it looks.
Well,
oh, I apologize. Important fact. 820 kilowatts, or about 1,100 horsepower. People are going to know that. I'd imagine some pretty phenomenally high torque as well.
Obviously.
0 to 100 kilometers per hour, and allegedly in 3 seconds flat. And this is a vehicle that can also, how could we forget? It can ford rivers.
Yes.
So it has because they claim that the body is so watertight that it can essentially float across rivers and be. The idea is that its traction control system can sense and counteract the flow of the water such that the vehicle will cross the river and end up directly across from the spot where you started, as opposed to drifting down at an angle and end up down here.
I think they said that it has a certain level of fording capability, didn't they, in the conference?
It's like IP86
water.
Well,
that's the water. That's for the water resistance for the battery pack. Yeah, but I seem to think they may have mentioned something about its fording capability, but I can't remember that.
I can't remember. We're good at this. I can't remember the exact. All I know is it essentially can float and then use the wheels to keep itself going straight across a river, which is pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
And then it has, is it? I don't know if it's. I think it's LiDAR based. They haven't been.
No, they did mention. I think they did mention LiDAR with the. Yeah. I think the LiDAR wasn't on the N7, if I can remember correctly. I think it's on the U8, from what I can remember with. The press conference.
Yes. Yeah. So it has LiDAR-based recognition technology for like trail scanning. Yes. So it will be able to, and this is a technology that seems to be also be available on the DCIS A system. They showed that with some video of an N7 digital kind of not real car. Scanning the road, seeing a pothole, and preparing the suspension for the obstacle as opposed to reacting to the obstacle. So the same thing with the U8, but it just does so on the trail. There's a rock, and I'm going to raise the suspension in advance of the obstacle so that you, the driver, don't have to.
Yeah, and it had a very low sort of error rate. Well, it was like 99% accurate.
+% accuracy.
Or something like that. Plus, there was very small distance with...
with accuracy of up to plus or minus 3 millimeters.
Yeah, was it 3 millimeters?
Average up to 3 millimeters.
Right.
And so that it obviously has camping mode, just like something like a Rivian that can auto level. So you get to your camping spot, you want to use your roof tent, your car's kind of at an angle, it will raise this left side suspension so that the vehicle is completely flat, making it much more comfortable to sleep in.
Yeah.
So super, super impressive. But yes, there's too much to talk about with the U8, but I want to talk a bit about what it looks like, because I think when it first came out, there were some accusations of, as I mentioned, it is the same dimensions generally as a Range Rover or a Land Rover Defender 130. And there were some people saying like, oh, it looks like a ripoff of a Land Rover. Myself included when I saw the prototypes, but the details are not even remote.
It doesn't, in detail, it doesn't look the same, but obviously with that kind of vehicle, you're a bit limited with what you can do, particularly if you want to really get that off-road capability. And so I think those limitations have dictated the overall silhouette of the design. And that's why it looks like that. But as you said, the details are certainly different. And obviously with the capabilities that have, I think I would really like to actually do a comparison of the two of their off-road capabilities. But I think the Yangwang may well be more capable off-road, certainly from what we've seen so far.
I think technologically, there's no way, if those systems are actually calibrated as well as they could be, there's no way that it's not better. I mean, it will be heavier probably.
Yeah,
So that is a limiting factor.
that's an element.
It might sink into sand a little bit more, but or mud or whatever.
Yeah.
But I still, as we said, this was the first time at the event seeing it in person, and I gotta say, I don't. It's not beautiful, certainly, but boy, does it look really cool.
It looks the business.
It looks the business is a very good way to put it, because the front lighting profile is incredibly distinct with this. If you're, I'm gonna do it from your angle. Well, I should do it here. The lights come in like this and kind of like a C shape, but very boxy, and then the rear light grid kind of thing. That looks fantastic. I love the hexagonal spare wheel cover, octagonal as it may be. I think that the overall like design, the way it is really well executed. Yeah, really not beautiful, but as cool as if I were to describe to you an SUV that had 4 motors, 1100 horsepower, you know, infinitely adjustable all-wheel drive, trail scanning and stuff, you would picture some sort of sci-fi style futuristic SUV, and you would indeed be correct, because that is what BYD has designed.
Yeah.
But I think we can move over now, because there's an arguably even more interesting and maybe even harder to pull off vehicle that they're doing, which is the second promised model from Yangwang, which is the U9.
The dancing car.
The dancing car, the so-named dancing car. The U9 uses not DCIS P, but DCIS X.
And we know very little about DCIS X.
We've only been able to see, I don't know if this, I'm assuming that they've already broadcast this footage, because it was pretty, well, not the dancing part.
Oh, right, okay.
The 3-wheel part.
Oh, right, yeah, no, it's been broadcast. I've seen
Okay,
it, yeah.
then if you haven't seen this, please seek it out. We can find it and maybe put it on screen for you, but basically they did a very cool reveal during the press conference, where the footage of they show the footage of the U9 driving down the road or driving inside of a facility, and then they kind of go around it as it's driving to reveal that the front right, as I recall, wheel was not there. So the vehicle was able to, via its air suspension or DCIS X, we're not
balance,
sure if air or
balance.
hydraulic.
It's hydraulic, definitely.
It's definitely hydraulic. With the speed with which it danced, I would think it would need to be hydraulic. But either way, it was able to steady itself and continue to drive with only 3 wheels, which the DCIS P, they emphasize the fact that because of the way that each motor is individually controlled, if you have a flat tire at 120 kilometers per hour or over 70 miles per hour, you would be able to maintain dead straight direction balance, because it would immediately and quickly react and keep the car going straight, which is, you know, a nice safety feature.
Well, we don't know for certain that DCIS X is hydraulic, but it must be, because it seems to be the extreme version, and up to that point, DCIS P is the highest version, and we've already got rid of the air, we've gone to hydraulic, so it must presumably be hydraulic as well, or at least based on it, as far as we know. But
I think
they're a bit thin on the details, and
we don't have to talk very much about the U9, because we don't know very much about the U9. We know that it's going to have this DCIS X suspension,
and it looks really good.
And we know that it looks good.
Amazing.
Powertrain-wise, we know it will almost certainly be the quad motor, you know, some form of the same powertrain that was found in the Yangwang U8, but we don't really know any other details, so we can just move on to talking about the fact that it looks pretty good. It looks
really good. Looks really good.
I really like the way it looks. I think it actually manages to be, and I'm curious to see what people think about this statement. I think it manages to look pretty unique.
Yeah, it does.
In that it doesn't look like a copy of a McLaren or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. It looks like a Yangwang, or what future Yangwangs will look like, I would think. It also has that very cool, clear, central kind of wing. That runs down the spine of the car.
But my only argument would be is that you've got the Yangwang U8, then you've got the Yangwang U9, but other than the brand name, what's the connection? And I think this is going to be a little bit of an issue, because initially when I saw Yangwang, I thought, okay, this is going to be some sort of extreme off-road brand. But then you bring the U9, and this is like an electric sports car. So what's this brand all about?
It's true. I think that probably BYD's thinking on this, if I had to guess, would be essentially this is just as a lot of companies have halo models, right? Lexus has had the oh my gosh, why do I always forget the name of the one? The amazing Lexus that they came out with, not the LC 500. Prior to that, the V10 Lexus, the best sounding car in the world. I can never remember the name of it. Well, we are losing our credibility very quickly here. You'll tell me in the comments, I'm sure. They have that. Ford has the GT.
Yeah.
You know, Chevrolet has all their high-end, the Corvettes and stuff. BYD's like, instead of having a Halo model, let's have a Halo brand. So we can then have a incredibly high-end, both off-road vehicle that can demonstrate our capabilities there, but also an incredibly high-end sports car that can demonstrate those. And we should say before I think we move on to, as a bonus round, the other high-end brand that BYD is launching this year, that pricing for the BYD for the U8. BYD, it's not a BYD U8, it's a Yangwang U8, is from 800,000 to 1.5 million RMB, which is around about 80,000 or so, or no, it's more like 100,000 to, or a little more, 115,000 to say 165,000 or 100, maybe more.
Maybe more like 180,000.
Maybe 180,000. Either way, it's a heck of a lot of money, and the U9 is supposed to start. All we know is it's supposed to start above 1 million RMB, which would put it in direct contention with the upcoming GIC Ion SSR.
It's SSR, isn't it?
It's
Hyper SSR.
Hyper SSR.
I think so. And then there's also the Hongqi one as well.
Oh well, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
That's been incoming for a very long time.
Yeah.
I don't believe it when I see it. So
True.
That's there and very much. I think at this point, if I'm not mistaken, they will be the most expensive vehicles from a Chinese manufacturer publicly.
Mainstream ones.
Mainstream.
Mainstream. And when we say mainstream, ones that are readily available.
Right. Apart from like a Hongqi L5.
Yes. That's listed on their website, but doesn't say the price.
No. Yeah. It's
invite only.
Ask if you are a government official.
Yeah.
Is what it is. But let's finish by briefly, because there's not much to talk about, talking about the other BYD high-end brand that's going to be launching this year.
Talking about the F brand?
I'm talking about that F brand. And their first model, codenamed SF, which appears to be another, similar to the U8 actually, very boxy, off-road type vehicle with I thought it was going to be pure electric. Mark corrected me earlier.
Plug-in hybrid.
Plug-in hybrid. Not an extended range either.
Plug-in hybrid.
Plug-in hybrid, standard plug-in hybrid, which is, I'm sure, going to use, or I think we would suspect going to use probably the latest version of DMP.
The performance version of their dual motor, not dual mode rather than the dual motor.
Is it dual mode, not dual
It's dual, no, it's not dual motor, it's dual mode.
Interesting. So BYD's PHEV technology is referred to as DM, dual mode, apparently not dual motor. Which
I always get them mixed up. That's dual mode, not dual motor.
I didn't learn until right now. DMI is their less powerful, more energy or fuel efficient version, and then DMP is of course performance. So I'd imagine that it will have some form of DMP over 500 kilowatts, which is like 800 horsepower. It's
getting on for that way, definitely.
A lot. It's a lot. And so, you know, it's going to be, people talk about being in the vein of the G-Wagon, but the reality is that it's going to be, it's going to be between 60 and 80,000 US dollars, significantly cheaper than the U8. So I think the U8 is going to be the G-Wagon competitor.
Yes. Yeah, the true one.
The true one.
Certainly price-wise.
Yes. And so we will look forward to learning more about that brand. So far, we only have some prototype images.
Not much.
Which look like a boxy SUV.
Yeah. Well, it's all camouflaged, so you can't really tell much.
It is. Though they did leave a little Easter egg in those images. They made sure to park it in front of a G-Wagon, as I recall. They are, even though they said in their press materials for the U8, they said this is a G-Wagon competitor. Then in the press materials,
they did mention the G-Wagon as well.
They mentioned that it's a G-Wagon competitor. So I mean, they are just really gunning for the G-Wagon, or they can't think of any better reference for it.
They just don't like the G-Wagon.
They just don't like the G-Wagon. I will add as a final thing, because somebody's going to get mad if I don't mention this. With the U8, it also has not just crab walk like a Hummer EV. It also has like zero degree turn, but tank turn, right? Like the upcoming electric G-Wagon. And at least in the press conference, it appeared to move completely laterally. Not crab walk is a kind of a diagonal move, which is where you just turn the wheels that way. This thing was spinning the front wheels one way and the rear wheels another way, and literally moving sideways. So who knows if that'll be a production feature, but I wanted to make sure.
Great for parallel parking.
Fantastic. Make you look, that will get some attention if you're in downtown Shanghai and you did that. So I think that that's probably a good point for us to stop. There's a ton to talk about, obviously, with these brands. My final closing thought is I sure look forward to driving some.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, really, we're doing a lot of speculating right now, and we know some details, but we don't know all of them. But definitely, we need to get in those cars soon.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed that we're the ones that get chosen by BYD to do the G-Wagon U8 comparison. Let this be our, this is our job application for that position. We will take it. We will take it.
Yeah, just give us a great location.
Yes. Can't do it in the parking lot.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks to you guys for returning to the Wheelsboy Chat channel. We missed you all very much. This is honestly one of the most fun things that we get to do, is to sit and just chat about cars and interact with you guys. So please be sure to comment below with your thoughts on the Yangwang brand, the F brand, anything you think that we missed when it came to those brands. What do you think, or how do you think those brands are going to be received in the Chinese market? I think there's
What about internationally?
Or internationally. Do you look forward to seeing the U8 in your market? Are you going to try and import one? Anything you want to say, please let us know in the comments below. We look forward to seeing you in future videos. Thanks very much.